Welcome back. Goodbye to 2019. Say hello to a 2020 full of uncertainty. There is a record for the world economy over the past year because there are several countries that are experiencing difficulties and start entering recession. As we enter 2020, there is some cautious optimism on the global front. Country with the greatest economic power, such as the United States, cannot even be separated from the threat of recession, after the government bonds yield curve into the country has inverted. It means recession is about to come up to world's greatest economies. Threat of recession is not only a nightmare for the U.S., but also for the other countries. Recession can cause a global financial crisis, as happened in 2009. IMF predicts the possibility of recession in the next 12 months is 29.08%. It fell far short of estimates in last year, which reached almost 47%. However, several other countries in the world apparently cannot avoid recession last year. Following are some of the countries trapped in the recession in 2019 were Mexico, Turkey, and Hong Kong. Here's the good news. Economists believe a recession that starts next year will probably be relatively short and mild. That's largely because consumer finances are in good shape and there's little sign of excesses. Game on. 2020 is now kicking off. You know what that means. It's time for analysts to attempt fate, give overview and some predictions about what will happen in 2020. Prediction basically based on gathered data from economic institutions such as IMF, World Bank, or even OECD. Therefore, in this infographic segment, I would like to give an overview as well as more detailed analysis of the world economy. Let's check the first data about the world economic growth, both from current and the projection. This is the world economic growth in 2017 to 2020, taken from or gathered from IMF and World Bank's data. 2017, 3.1%, 2.9% is the economic growth or the projection of the economic growth from the two institutions. In 2018, in 2019, 3.2%, and 2020, it is predicted to reach 3.5%. Based on the data, we can see IMF did review on 2017 and 2018, while World Bank takes over the projection of 2019 and 2020. We can only hope that the prediction about 2020 economic growth will be in the level of 3.5%. And talking about rising trade and geopolitical tensions, many countries are hurting because of it. Even Venezuela once was Latin America's richest country, but now IMF estimated the country's economic growth will drop by 25% in 2019. And to get know more about the country that experienced slow economic growth in 2019, we can see through the next data. This is world's slowest economic growth in 2019. Venezuela, it was, experiencing a slowdown as much as 25%. Iran, 6%. Zimbabwe, 5.2%. And Nicaragua, 5%. And minus 25% in economic growth. Of course, it is a disaster. In the years leading up to the 2007 to 2008 global financial crisis, Venezuela posted double-digit GDP growth rates. And in the blink of an eye, oil prices and production sank, plunging the country into a spiral of mounting debt, poverty, and hyperinflation. There are also other profoundly damaged economies. For example, Iran with minus 6% on GDP, or Zimbabwe with minus 5.2% on GDP. And respectively, there are some countries that has the fastest growing economy. There are Ethiopia, Turkmenistan, Mongolia, Uzbekistan, China, India, Laos, and Rwanda. Those are the nations that have shown the most sustained and robust GDP growth among close to 200 routinely surveyed by the IMF. But of course, the first rank as the world's highest economic growth is still held by USA. The US has retained its position of being the world's largest economy since 1871. And to get know more about the position of US as world's largest economy, we will give you the data plus the other strong economic countries as comparison through the next graphic. As you can see, the darker green is what happened in 2019, and the light green is prediction of the growth or GDP growth for each country in 2020. And as you can see, in terms of growth, if you compare the data of USA and China, the percentage of China is actually higher compared to USA, since the growth of economic growth in USA is already mature, and China is some kind of emerging country that will reach a huge number of economic growth. And in terms of value, of course, if we can see, USA have the highest number in terms of nominal GDP compared to another country, and this one is taken from Focus Economics consensus. And however, if we pay attention to world's highest economic growth, America's economic growth has recently returned to a more moderate pace of growth in this year. The economic growth rate was 2.5%. This is substantially lower than the 2018 rate of 2.9%. So if we compare with China as the second largest country in terms of GDP, China may beat United States through the growth of percentage. We have talked about the global players. Now the question is, how about Indonesia? The economic growth target set by the government in 2020 state budget is 5.3%. But there are so many projections given. Most of the projections believe that Indonesia economic growth will be below 5.2%. So how is actually, let's take it through the next data. This is 2020 Indonesia's economic growth projection. OECD projected Indonesia to grow by 5%, IMF 5.1%, World Bank 5.1%, Core Indonesia 5.1%, and ADB as much as 5.2%. That is the quite optimist some kind of projection from ADB. And another projection comes from the Institute for Development of Economics and Finance, or INDEF. The institution projects that Indonesia's economic growth in 2020 will only reach 4.8%. This figure is lower than the government target of 5.3%. The analyst said that the projection is based on slowing export factors and transmission line factors for investment, and we can deny that 2019 brought a heavy dose of global challenges. And how about challenges that hit 2020 Indonesia's economic growth? We can see it through the next data. This is the list of the challenges in Indonesia's economic growth in 2020. The first one is credit growth is still slowing down, and then current account deficit, and Indonesia's government still improve on the current account deficit, and trade balance deficit. Global uncertainties will continue, which may press Indonesia's economic growth in 2020. And the fifth challenge that will be, faced by Indonesia, slowing down investment growth. And heading into 2020, still there are homeworks for government to deal with. Moreover, the government has reiterated its determination to bring Indonesia into a developed country surpassing middle income trap. In this regard, research professor at LIPI's Economic Research Center, Sharif Hidayat, said that to ensure the concept and implementation of the Economic Transformation Acceleration Program, the orientation of government policy reform must also emphasize strengthening the capacity of the state while still not abandoning the initiative of institutional reform in increasing investment. And we're hoping nothing but the best for the economic growth, whether it's for national or global. Stay tuned on Market Headlines because we'll be right back after the break.